Oh my goodness.
Hello.
I'm so
Yeah.
excited to have you here.
Thank you.
I feel like I'm totally fangirling over you right now.
Well, that's sweet. I'm excited.
So, what got you started into the gifted world?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. So, I actually graduated from college and went into teaching. So, I was just an educator, my first career in my 20s. I had a couple of colleagues who told me I taught in a way that would be good for gifted kids. And because I didn't go by the book. I didn't do the traditional boring stuff. So the gifted kids in the classes really, really liked me. The other kids not so much, but because I was sort of out of the box.
Yeah.
But I didn't, but these colleagues said, this is the creative kind of teaching would be good for these kids. I ended up moving to Pennsylvania, and they had just passed a law that schools needed to identify and serve their gifted children in the schools. So these jobs opened up because they started doing pull-out programs in these different schools, and I got a job teaching gifted children in a pull-out program in
Okay.
Pennsylvania. And I loved it, and I that was my first introduction to giftedness and
Mhm.
gifted kids. And I did that for, I don't know, I think about 5 years. And then I moved to Oregon, and I got another job doing the same kind of thing. But then at some point I decided I wanted to I just well, a couple of things. Like I was fighting all the time. Not really fighting, but, with teachers who were not happy with the kids being pulled out of their classes and trying to help people understand who these kids were and what they needed, and
Yeah.
it was different, and they weren't better humans, but they had these particular needs, and so that got a little tiring,
Mm.
but then I also felt like in my heart I really was a therapist, and I had been a client in therapy for some years already, and I
Mhm.
loved it, it was so cool, and it was everything
Same.
I read, yeah,
I tell my
reading.
husband I'm really good at therapy. I'm really good at it, as if it's a sport.
Yeah, well, it's my favorite thing, right? So I went back to school and
And
got
you were
a counseling
39 when you went
degree.
back to
I
school,
was
is that right?
39.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Inspiring people, it's never too late to go back
That's
to
right.
school,
That's right.
right? So I just got basic traditional degree in counseling and then worked in an agency for a while and then in doing therapy with this population because
Okay.
I knew them so well from the years teaching the kids and I knew they had particular mental health need that really required someone who understood giftedness
Yeah.
to serve them, to not miss some basic, really important parts of them. So, yeah, so then I started the practice and they started coming to me.
You started a
Cla
blog, right?
not I did not start the blog until, 11 years ago.
Oh,
So,
okay.
I tell people I was 62. I'm 73 now. I was 62 when I started the blog. So the blog didn't help me get clients. Locally, there was a gifted summer program for gifted kids, and I taught in that. And then I did some parent classes for those parents of the gifted kid at the University of Oregon. The teacher training, there was someone who hired me to teach the teachers how to work with gifted kids
Mhm.
in the regular classroom. So I
Mhm.
got known that way.
Yeah.
I wrote for the newspaper. So I ended up just getting those clients started coming to me.
Were those
And,
clients
I loved it.
mostly kids, parents, adults? What was the client mix like in the beginning?
In the beginning, I did do some work with kids and families, but what I really wanted to do was work with adults and do the deep dive psychotherapy, childhood trauma. So I gradually moved myself into that, where I really preferred, working with the adults. And, people who were really interested in healing, in deep healing, and not just
Mhm.
the Band-Aid kind of therapy or the quick fix
Yep.
stuff. So people who were capable of going deep, not everybody can, right?
Right.
It's not the appropriate therapy for everyone. You really need enough ego strength to go and look at the trauma and grieve and connect with the child part, the internal family systems model.
Yeah.
That's really what I wanted to do. So I did that most of the time. And then the gifted piece, it would be like, what is giftedness and what are those traits that you have that are important to address? And how do they overlap with growing up in this dysfunctional family? So it's sort of like separating out and looking at, okay, so we're going to do this trauma work, this somatic work, this healing, and how does the giftedness come into play in that
Mhm.
good combination of both?
That's great.
Does
I
that make
love
that make sense? Yeah.
Makes total sense, makes total sense. And I'm guessing at some point during that work, you decided to write a book, and the gifted word apparently wasn't working for some of your clients, so you came up with this new, way to describe it. Walk us through that
Mhm.
process.
Actually, I came up with that metaphor while I was still teaching
Oh, so it
because
goes way back.
it goes way back.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Again, it was how do I explain this to these teachers
Yeah.
so that they aren't upset about, oh, you think you're better than,
Right.
than us, or that they aren't triggered by the word gifted. Although in education, they did need to use an IQ test and they did do some of those traditional ways of identifying the kids, which of course you miss a whole bunch of them if you just use
Yep.
IQ,
Yep.
but that's a whole other discussion.
So
But
share for our listeners what this metaphor is and
yes,
what it
yeah.
means.
So I thought, how do I explain this to people where they might feel more comfortable with it? I don't even remember how it came to me, but what I thought was, okay, people are like ecosystems. And some people are like meadows, and some people are like deserts, and some people are like rainforests. And the rainforest ecosystem on the planet is the most complex ecosystem.
Mm.
And then you would say, okay, it's like it's resourceful and it's highly creative and it's intense and overwhelming and it serves the planet, full of life. It's just such a great metaphor to describe this population. And then it's also, we could say being cut down. We are cutting down or burning up the rainforest and we turning it into something that it's not. And so we do that to our gifted people too.
Yeah.
And all ecosystems are beautiful and valuable. We need our rivers and we need our meadows and deserts. And this one is just the hardest one to figure out. You walk into a rainforest and I read somewhere 10,000 species of ants. It's like,
Yeah.
right? So
Very
much going
complex.
on.
Very
Right.
complex.
And sensitive, highly
And
sensitive.
super sensitive. Yeah.
Right.
I've heard
Right.
you say that all rainforest minds are intellectually advanced, but not all intellectuals are rainforest minds. So, what is the distinction between just being smart or really bright and being
Hmm.
a rainforest mind? What traits put somebody clearly in that rainforest mind category?
I'm sure everyone can think of people who are highly intelligent and,
Mhm.
gifted, intellectually gifted, but they don't have these other traits. They may have one field of interest that they do their whole lives. They're a scientist in the lab. They are brilliant, but they don't have this thing that rainforest minded people have, which is called multipotentiality, which is lots of things they're interested in, lots of things they want to do. They get bored after they master this one thing. They want to go on to the next thing. That's a trait of somebody with a rainforest mind. Not every intellectually advanced person has that. Some of them stay in one field their whole lives and they're happy doing that, but they're also super smart. Okay. They're not all highly sensitive. They don't all have a lot of empathy, right? We know some of these very smart people out there in the world, who don't have empathy,
Yep.
right? They don't care about anybody else. Rainforest minded people, super empathy, super sensitive, socially responsible. Whereas you might have an intellectual gifted person who isn't socially responsible, who doesn't care about other people.
Yeah.
Right? Those are some of the main traits. What else? The empathy, the high sensitive, the creativity. Not every super smart person is highly creative,
Mm.
but the rainforest-minded person is highly creative.
Are all
It's
creative minds also rainforest minds?
no,
Okay.
because you can be creative, but not super intelligent.
Okay.
It's awkward to say, but the rainforest-minded person is also very bright, is also intellectually advanced, intellectually gifted. So you can have, the HSP world, the highly
Yep.
sensitive
Highly
person
sensitive
world.
person. Yep.
They say that's 20% of the population. Gifted people are 3 to 5% of the population. So, right? So you got a bunch of AHSPs who aren't gifted.
Yeah.
They're highly sensitive. They're lovely people, but
Mhm.
they don't have that drive to learn, let's say.
Do
They
you
aren't
think
reading a lot, you know.
Yeah. Do you think that in order to be gifted or have a rainforest mind,
Mhm.
that it must include all of the negatives as well as the positives?
Like,
I know in your book you talked a little bit about the Dabrowski's overexcitabilities,
mm,
and there is obviously, of the 5, if you were super advanced or overexcitable in 4 of them, we would just, like,
mhm,
think you're Superman, but if you're overly emotional, that 5th one, it's like,
mm,
you're
mm,
screwed. So, are there
yeah.
rainforest-minded people out there that have all the excitabilities, all of the traits that you're talking about that are wonderful and experience none of the downside of this experience? Like anxiety, depression, loneliness,
Oh.
isolation, the existential crises and dread. Is that
Mhm.
just part and parcel for this experience, or are those people out there that have all the great and none of the bullshit?
I haven't met any of them.
Is
Right.
that
Of
because they're
course.
not coming to you because they don't need you?
I have thought about that. I bet there are 1 or 2 out there in the world. I think loneliness, I mean, how can you be this rainforest-minded, gifted person and not be lonely or not have even the existential angst? You're so aware, you're so sensitive, you're clued in, you're paying attention to what's
Exactly.
happening.
Exactly.
So I don't think I think the downside of it is part of it for sure. Yeah, and again, maybe there are 1 or 2 out there who are perfect.
If you are listening, let us know. We would love to
Call
know all
me.
of your secrets. All right.
Mhm,
In your book, you wrote the following. You said, bragging is inappropriate and can be destructive. We have all known people we avoid because they seem so impressed with themselves. But we also know that these folks likely need to boast because of their insecurities. By contrast, rainforest minds tend to overcompensate by shrinking. You might end up not only hiding your abilities, but avoiding success because of the pressure that comes with it. It may be real, it may be not, but to avoid that real or imagined pressure, you stay small. I related to that, and it made me think about even accepting the fact that you experience giftedness or you experience a rainforest mind. That requires a little bit of self bragging that you could be a little brighter or be a little more sensitive. And a lot of people really struggle inside themselves before they even go out into the world and hide themselves. They're hiding within. How do
mm,
you get folks to wrap their head around that and accept it in such a way that it's, as you've said a few times already, it's not that you're better than anybody else, but this is such an important part of who you are and your own development and your own awareness and your own self understanding and your own self actualization. How do you
mhm.
talk them into it?
How do I talk them into accepting that they're gifted?
Yeah.
Is that yeah. So, one piece is there's mythology around what gifted is. A lot of them believe that they're not gifted because, let's say, they didn't get straight A's in school, or they didn't excel in school, or they're not high achievers. They're not, the CEO of the company. They're not super accomplished. They think giftedness is just those people who are achieving and accomplished
The
and
Nobel Prize
famous and
winners. Yeah.
right. Yeah. So that's one piece. Another piece is they generally know there are people who are smarter than they are. They say, yeah, I'm okay. Many times feel like, well, I'm just normal. Doesn't everybody think like this?
Doesn't everybody know
Right?
that? Yeah.
I've used that phrase, what's obvious to you may not be obvious to somebody else.
Yeah.
But you don't know that. You don't realize that unless check that out or somebody says to you, so do you know that, you're other people don't know what string theory is? So there are those things that they just, don't really believe it. And then there's the justice and fairness and fear of being called arrogant or being thought that you're arrogant and really, really wanting to be fair and just. And if I'm gifted then and they're not, ugh, you
That's
know,
unfair.
that's
That
unfair. It's
Yeah.
unjust, right? There's this equality,
Yeah.
equality. And you know what I'll say with to that is, yes, go for equality, but not sameness. Sameness and equality aren't the same. You know what I mean? So we're not all the same.
Yeah.
We are all equal, but we're not all the same. So that's part of, and then what I run into is people, they just feel normal. They don't realize that you know, that they're extra smart. It's easier to identify in children because, when you're 3 years old, you teach yourself how to read. Some of these gifted kids, they're reading when they're 3 or 4,
Yeah.
before they get into school, or they're asking these complicated questions, or they're talking in complete sentences at as an earlier age.
Yeah.
So you can see that, although people still deny it, people still, and parents who just have that one child don't have anything to compare it to, so they
Right.
also don't necessarily identify their kid as gifted either.
Well,
Oh,
then how do they
it's
find their way to you? How does it start to
yeah.
manifest in adulthood to a place where people start going, okay, this is not everything that my typical therapist or psychiatrist has diagnosed me to have. Something else is
Mhm.
going on.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good question. I mean, because on the one hand, the people that I come to me for counseling come because, they have trouble in relationships, or, the typical counseling issues. They
Yeah.
grew up with an alcoholic family. And so I get people just for that reason. And I guess, well, that's the main reason that they come. But I've started consulting. So I'm trying to think, okay, why do they come to me? It's like, it's like, who are those people? And how did they find me? I
Well, what
mean,
do they start
recently,
feeling when like, when you think back to
yeah.
the last
Well,
gifted person that found you and they start having a
yeah.
conversation with you, what are the moans and the angst that they're telling you right off the bat?
They're lonely.
Yeah.
There's nobody
Yeah.
that understands them. There's nobody
Yeah.
that,
There
right,
we
can
go. Yeah.
reciprocate. They're the ones who are taking care of everybody else, but nobody's taking care of them.
Yeah.
And they can't talk about, they have what you're saying. They have anxiety
Mhm.
or depression. I mean, but loneliness, that's like the
Yeah.
big one.
Let me read something that you wrote in your book. You were quoting a client, and the client said to you, "I need someone to mentor me in a meaningful way, but I'm 5 steps ahead of everyone." And then
Mhm.
went on to write, rainforest minds commonly find themselves doing their own research to answer their questions. Practitioners, including myself, are often not as bright as the rainforest mind, which can lead to frustration with supposed experts. Rainforest minds need a team of practitioners because of their complexity and how no one person will be able to find the answer for her. Though frustrating, this is the normal reality for a rainforest mind. That
Right.
breaks my heart, Paula.
Yeah, I know. Me too. Me too. Of course it does. But it's true. It's like, I understand this, but I have clients, they're so advanced, they're so complex that I can't even like know. Like, you want to be known, right?
Yeah,
You want to be seen.
yeah,
It's like, walk into the jungle, right?
yeah.
There's no way you can even see everything that's there.
Much
You
less
know,
be an
the
expert on every single thing that's in there.
right,
Yeah,
right. Yeah. The solution is give yourself permission to have, this range of practitioners that can take care of at least parts of you. And know that, yeah, it's sad and it's heartbreaking, but there probably won't be one person who gets all of it unless you find us another super duper, gifted, rainforest minded person. And even then,
they're not gonna be
you don't,
exactly like you.
right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm doing a lot of looking back at my own life and accidentally setting myself up for success a lot of time. There was a moment when I was in couples counseling, individual therapy, and group therapy all at the same time. I had a personal
Mhm.
trainer, I had business coaches. It was more of a buffet of help, and
Uh-huh.
there was no one savior. There was no one mentor like your client was describing in that. One of my mantras that I had to tell myself every day is I am my own savior. There's no one that's going
Mhm.
to be coming in to rescue me. The onus is on me to create the team. The onus is on me to
Mhm.
create, to research my own answers. Do you think that experience is going to be a lifelong journey for gifted people? Do you ever outgrow it to a point where you're smooth sailing, or is it a lifetime of this buffet of help?
Yeah, I think it's a lifetime. Especially see, you might not have this buffet your whole life, and some people will change along the way, some people
Yeah.
you'll have them, and then they'll give you what they can give you, and then you're
Yeah.
done with them, and you have to find the next
Yeah.
one. What I notice is that rainforest-minded people are always doing that inner work, on the journey of who am I? Self-actualization,
Mhm.
contributing on the planet. Why am I
Mhm.
here? What am I here to do? Right? And so I'm, you know, always working with somebody, right? I have my physical therapist and my acupuncturist, and then I did the dancing for a little while. Yes, I think it's lifelong, and I think maybe one key is to not pathologize that.
As you're talking, when you said lifelong, I immediately teared up because it's so hard. It's a
Mhm.
hard life.
Yeah.
I think that there are a lot of gifts to it. I love learning. I love reading. I love the path of self-actualization and exploring all the different ways that people get there. I felt a lot of permission in what you just said. People are gonna come and go. I've heard people come in your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime, and I feel a lot of
Mm,
permission in that your team is gonna change along the way. Your
mhm,
interests are gonna change along the way,
mhm,
and that's okay, and that's not flip-flopping, that's not wishy-washy, that's not sticking to
mm.
something. That's just how you're made, and that's not a pathology, that is your gift.
That's right. That's right. Boy, that is really important. Because, yes, it can be labeled all those other things for sure. I mean, even when people change careers, it's like, what is wrong with you? You can't stick with it. Can't you just focus
Yeah.
on one thing?
Yeah, can't you
It's
just
like,
stay there for
no.
30 years and get the gold watch and retire and have a 401k like
Right.
everybody
Be
else in the
normal.
world? Be
Yeah. What's
normal.
wrong?
Go get the
Right.
job. It's like that's never going to work.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And yay, good for you that that you know that it's not. And then you're really getting, okay, oh, that's fine. It's like that's normal for me. This is
It
normal for
yeah,
me.
it's also
Mhm.
not an excuse not to do what you need to do in your life and have,
Sure.
create value and do meaningful things and contribute to society, of course, but
Mhm.
your path
Mhm.
will not be like everybody else.
When you said it's hard to find places where you can say this is hard
Yeah.
because, right, the average person will say, "You've got everything.
Yeah.
You're so smart. What are you complaining about?
Yeah.
You can do anything you want."
If I just had
Right?
a fraction of your ability, my life would be so great. And here you are
Right.
squandering it.
Yes. Right. So that's it too. You have to really be selective about who you talk to about this, and there aren't a lot of people even still who understand it, who will not criticize you or who will not misunderstand
Yeah,
what you're
I'm on a
saying.
mission to change that.
Yeah,
Um,
good.
I want to you mentioned in your book some self-care techniques, and I want to hear you talk about it a little bit. You've already brought up acupuncture and the tango. Tell us a little bit about that self-care practice that you've discovered for yourself and your clients. Why
Mhm,
those 2
mhm.
things?
Yeah, yeah. Well, first of all, it's possible that the traditional techniques that people use won't be so effective for you. So that's one thing, to give yourself permission to try different things and not necessarily fit into what everybody else is saying you should do. Let's
Mhm.
say even meditation. There are tools that people use that you may find don't work for you. So that's okay. Just keep looking for the things that might work for you. You got to find a practitioner who is gifted if you can, right? And so I found an acupuncturist who's amazing, who's brilliant. So one idea is that you've got a body and you need to pay attention to your body,
Yes.
you kn right? And sometimes gifted people are thinkers and emotional, I wanted to respond to that too, emotional is also a factor in a
Yes.
rainforest-minded person, okay. So you need to address what's going on in your body because you're highly sensitive also probably physically. You may have allergies, you may have,
Yep.
yeah. So I see that a lot in my client. So the acupuncturist is just I just landed on her because she's brilliant and she's so skilled in what she does. I go every other week, and it's like somebody's giving me attention
Yeah,
for an hour,
yeah.
right? And it's like,
Does your
yeah.
mind shut off, or does it at least slow down when you're doing things to pay attention to your body?
Yes, I think you could say that. Don't expect it to shut down. Don't
Right.
expect it to, yeah,
I get that.
but
But
slowing down. Yeah, yeah.
yes.
I have clients who do things like rock climbing because you gotta focus. When you're
Mm,
doing rock climbing,
yeah.
you are not
Your survival
ruminating.
instincts kick in. Yeah.
And
You
you
can
but
only
you
think
have to
about that one
focus
thing.
and
Yeah.
pay attention.
You can
Uh-huh.
yeah,
So
because your
that's
survival
really
depends
good.
on it. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's balancing, balancing out the body with the mind or calming the nervous system or calming the mind. So some of those physical activities do help. For me, the acupuncture is also just more nurturing. She also does cranial sacral stuff and, it's just touching me. And,
Yeah.
I don't have a partner, so I'm like, oh, touch me. So, yeah.
I wanted to ask you about sex. Do you hear
Mm,
from your clients that, it doesn't ever stop, the mind doesn't ever stop? Physical
mm-hmm,
touch definitely is it's probably the only thing that I have found that slows me down. Do you
mm-hmm,
hear that a
mm-hmm.
lot? Is this normal?
Well, it's so funny when I saw your question about sex, I thought, "Oh, no, we don't talk about sex. I should start talking about sex with my clients."
Yeah.
Yes, so right. So I don't know so much about this actual sex.
Okay.
The physical touch definitely is important and a factor and helpful. And again, it's like with somebody else. It's just a different focus. It's just, right? You're and it's I want to say I'm sure there's chemicals that get released, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah. So yes, so the touch, again, I'm like, I don't know about sex per se, but definitely the physical contact. And
Mhm.
yeah, and just that, if you're with someone you love and you're having, you're being sexual, again, that's like rock climbing or something. It's like that's the focus is different, right? You're with this other person. It's
Well,
different parts of you are stimulated. Yeah. No?
yeah, that's it. That's where I was going with that. I don't know enough about the brain to have this discussion, but I do know that our survival the survival parts of our brain are in an older part of our brain, and I'm wondering if the sexual part of our brain also lives in that older
Mm,
part of the brain that allows us
mm,
to, at least for a moment, to shift the
mm,
focus and slow the racing mind down at least for a
mm.
sec. So I wanted to get
Yeah.
yeah, I appreciate that.
I've had clients tell me that they smoke pot,
Yeah.
and that's the only thing that slows their brains.
Okay.
I guess the question would be how much, how often, and, what's the downside of doing that?
Right.
But some people use other alcohol and pot, but pot seems to be the main one. Or to sleep. They'll just at least smoke pot at the end of the day because they can't sleep, because they
Yeah.
can't shut
Yep.
off their thinking.
Yep.
But another thought is, are you soothed when you're in nature? Does being outdoors in nature help you?
That's complicated for me. I grew up in rural Arkansas and I was in the woods a
Mm,
lot as a kid, but I have a lot
mhm.
of negative associations with what happened to me in the woods. And so,
Oh.
like walking through the trees, like we went to Muir Woods here in Northern California, and my husband is like, "This is amazing." And I'm like,
Mm.
whatever. But
Uh,
if I go to the ocean, then
mm, mm,
I do experience something different, and I find just being around the ocean very soothing. I don't have to get in, but just to
mhm,
hear the
mhm,
waves, to see it definitely
mhm.
helps me.
Because what I have found with clients is some kind of experience in nature is also, calming and soothing. So it's like when you're talking about your brain, busy brain, it's like finding those things that calm you down, like being by the ocean, or maybe coming up with some kind of spiritual practice.
Yep, I wanna ask you
Some,
about that later. Yep.
yeah, I want to mention the tango.
Please.
I love talking about that. Yeah, this is some time ago now, but I was looking for some creative outlet, something to do that, something that would also be social,
Mhm.
right? And so I thought about ballroom dancing, and I tried a class, and so trying all the different ballroom dances, and that was fun. But then there's this tango community here in Eugene, where I live, Eugene, Oregon, and I went and took a lesson, and I was like, "Oh," you just relate to different types of dances, and I
Yeah.
I somehow connected with that one, and sometimes it's the music. I tell people that if they're gifted and they're lonely, they should look for a tango community in their towns. It attracts smarter people.
That's
It's
I would never have
okay.
thought that. That's really
Yes.
interesting. I wonder why
Well,
that is.
I'll tell you what it is. You know, it's my first of all, it's my experience. So this may not really be true, but in my experience, the dance is complicated. It's creative. It requires high sensitivity.
Mm.
You're better at it if you have empathy. It's like the rainforest traits,
You get to
you
practice
know,
them all. Yeah.
and you're advantaged because
Mm.
you have them. In this town, what I found was I'm meeting the people. I'm thinking, oh my God, there were a number of computer programmers, and there was a scientist. The guy does science research, and then there are a couple of psychotherapists, and then a physical therapist and I don't know what this guy did, but it was like there was clearly just these were brighter people in general, and I
Yeah.
think it's because the complexity of the dance and what's required, and then the intimacy,
Mhm.
right? That thing about being touched and
Yes.
held.
Yeah.
You're holding, it's in the tango, it's like, whoa, it's intense and intimate.
Yeah.
And that could scare some people away. So I had this guy who was leading the tango, and he said to me, "People cannot follow me when I'm talking about what I'm interested in. They get lost, in his intellectualizing, but they follow me in the dance. I'm
Mm.
finally followed, right? Because there are no words,
Yeah.
and he experiences somebody with him. You're
Oh,
with
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So
beautiful.
yeah, and yeah, and it was, yeah. So it was just the community itself. They were just I don't know, it could just be in my town, but I have a feeling it's just, it's just a harder dance to learn, and so it attracts people who want that challenge, and then
Okay.
who also want the intimacy and the connection, and
I'm
it
gonna
just
check that out.
provides all of those things. Yeah, you should.
I am.
And
I'm
the
gonna look into it.
yeah, and just so you know, the other thing that's tricky is for leaders, if you decide you wanna lead, it's hard.
Mm.
It's not a simple waltz, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It's creative in a different way, and it's hard to learn, which can be hard for somebody who's gifted
Sure.
because who learns quickly, because you're not gonna learn this fast, right? So that's
So
one of
you're
the
gonna have to fight your
downsides.
perfectionistic tendencies
Right. If
and
you
slow
yeah,
yourself
yeah,
down.
everything comes easily, you learn that, but suddenly it's like, "Oh, this is hard. I'm not good at this. I'm not the best one in the room."
Yeah.
So, that makes it interesting, but it's a challenge, so,
Mm.
anyway.
I
Yeah.
wanna go back, if you don't mind, and talk about therapy for just a second. I believe it was in your book that I read that a rainforest mind is not like simplistic answers. And I feel like therapy, if the practitioner is not prepped for it, can be a bit simplistic for a rainforest mind, and that can create some frustration. How does a person go about finding a practitioner who
Mhm.
will at least understand that the Instagram quotable therapy advice is not going to work here? And if you're in an area where no one's specializing in giftedness, how do you
Mhm.
have a conversation with your local therapist and say, this is something that I experience. I'd like for
Uh-huh.
you to read a book on it.
Well, I wrote a couple of blog posts about it. I think you have to, that shop around,
Yeah.
you right? And ask the person, "What type of therapy do you do? Do you do CBT? Are you
Mhm.
just like a cognitive behavioral therapist and
Mhm.
that's all you do? Solution focused, quick fix therapy?"
Yep.
Or right? So you interview them, you come with questions,
Okay.
or you try to see if they'll do I don't know if they do this anymore, but I would do a 20-minute meet and greet,
Yep.
thing
Yep.
where you meet. I mean, it's like you wanna have a good match. The therapist and the client wanna have a
Sure.
good match, right?
Yeah.
So you come with your list of questions, and first of all, if they're, like, defensive because you're asking them questions, you don't go to them.
Good advice. Okay.
Mhm.
You want someone
Right.
curious.
Right. What do you need? Tell me what you need, and I'll see if I can provide that. I don't know if I can, and so you have your questions, so the type of therapy, if they go deep, they do internal family systems, or they do somatic experiencing, or
Mhm.
they do psychodynamic attachment theory.
Yep.
You want that. And then you can say in the initial either email or first meeting. So I have these characteristics, and I don't know if you want to use the word gifted or not, but you say, I really need somebody who's going to be able to follow me. And I talk fast, and I move quickly, and like describing who
Yes.
you are and saying, so I need to know if you're able to do that or willing to do that or you wanna do that. And then you watch them. If they say, "Oh, yeah, sure," but you go, "No." You use your intuition to find the person who's really capable of doing that for you, who's, like, excited to see you,
Yeah.
right? Who says, "Oh, yes, I love working," working with
Yeah. Yeah.
smart people.
Exactly. I get that.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
That's
it's
good
hard. But
advice.
know that it's hard. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's hard.
Yeah. All right. I want to read this part from your book. You said loneliness may be the number one challenge for the rainforest mind, and it often starts early. You are lonely because you do not fit in any one place. You may find that conversations are not deep enough or fast enough, or no one quite gets your sense of humor. You may be the one everyone comes to for advice, but when you need a confidant, no one's at home. So we talked about loneliness just a little bit. You mentioned a couple of places where folks like going to find a tango class, finding the right sort of therapist. Just in the short time that I've been talking about and exploring gifted and putting stuff out there, the emails that I get overwhelmingly are about making my marriage work, that the intensities complicate
Mhm.
the relationship, whether
Mhm.
there was someone very intense or with someone who is not gifted and they're coming to their own awakening around giftedness and they're
Mhm.
struggling. What makes for a good gifted marriage?
I think it depends.
Say more.
So, I was going to write a book about not necessarily marriage and giftedness, but just relationships and giftedness.
Yeah.
Then I thought, "Oh, I don't think I have enough information for a book." But I asked my readers on the blog to talk about their relationships, and what are the pros and cons. And it was like, what is it like if you're with somebody who's gifted? What is it like if you're with somebody who's not gifted? So
Mhm.
I have 3 blog posts with people's different descriptions of what it's like, what it's not like. I think there are multiple factors. I don't know that I can say one thing, like there's not a simple answer because I
Mhm.
think, what brings people together in marriages is all of this other stuff, right?
Yeah.
I mean, right? There's here's my dysfunctional family, here's yours dysfunctional family.
Right.
Let's reenact our dysfunctional families together, right?
Right.
Oh,
Right.
you sound just like and I said, so I don't think I can say specifically it's almost like the gifted thing is a factor, but what might even be a bigger factor is all that other stuff.
I find myself telling my husband almost like I apologize a lot. I'll say,
Mm.
I know I'm a lot. I know I'm a lot. And
Uh-huh.
he just laughs about it. I married a saint, but not everybody marries a saint. There's just something for me in our relationship
Mm,
just to acknowledge that I'm a lot. And I get that I'm a lot. And I don't mean to be overwhelming or be a lot. And I love you for putting up with the lot that I am.
mhm.
I don't know that that's a secret, but it's certainly something that
Mm.
is a salve for my own marriage.
So, maybe you can answer that question better than I can. Like, I mean, communication is
Like,
important, right?
yes,
And
my
is he
husband likes
willing
to
to
say we're like lesbians. We communicate so much. Like, we take a walk every day. We are all just talk. We usually start our
Mhm,
walks with, what are you grateful for today? And that just sort of
mhm,
opens up the rest of our 45-minute walking and talking
mhm.
together.
What's the problem, do you think? What's your allotness mean? What does that mean?
I'm like a roller coaster sometimes. When I find something that I'm really into, I'm
Mm,
smooth sailing. If I'm feeling existential angst at all, I'm a lot. I will find myself sleeping a lot. You mentioned that earlier. I'll have to sleep a lot. I'm trying to think of what he would say is my allotness.
mhm,
Probably, well, he's a musician. And so his joke is, are you sure you're not the musician in this relationship with all of your drama? So little
mhm.
cracks like that. It's
Mhm.
just I'm much more sensitive to things. I think that can wear him out sometimes. So if someone says something, if
Mm.
his mother says something, I will
Mm.
I really get worked up about some of that stuff. Or if my mother says something, I really get worked up about that, where he's like, "What are
Mhm.
you so worked up about?" So that
Mhm.
happens quite a bit. I think that there's a lot of frustration around being very impatient and having the urge to perfect. And so it takes me a long time,
Mm.
if, as an entrepreneur, to put something out because I spend so
Mm.
much time wanting to
Mm.
perfect it. And that creates a
Mhm.
lot of frustration in our relationship because as an entrepreneur, the goal is to make money. And if I keep
Mm.
delaying, delaying, and delaying, he's going, "When are you going to make money?" So that
Mm.
certainly comes up. Yeah,
Mhm.
those are a few.
Mm. Yeah, so I'm thinking I think what you said about communicating and humor, you
Yeah.
mentioned a little bit of humor is
Yeah.
good. And I think something about, that idea of what we're saying, not totally relying just on your partner for
100%.
everything,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Right? But having friends, each of you having friends and support outside of the marriage
Yeah.
so that you can vent other places, not
Hmm.
just he has to hear all that,
Right.
that or you go to your therapist, he goes to his therapist, and you get support outside of the relationship. That will help that. And it's funny, some of the people who wrote on my blog said they actually preferred having a non-gifted partner because the other partner wasn't so intense. The
Yes.
other person was chill.
Yeah. Let me
And
ask you, you
and
just reminded me of a question that comes up for us when we've done therapy together. He
mm,
he sometimes gets frustrated with me because he's like, "You're just better at therapy than I am." And I don't know
mm,
if
mm,
someone who's listening to this understands what it means to be good at therapy, but there's a certain language that goes with that, and there's a certain processing that goes with that. And I'm able to
mm,
go very quickly. If the therapist starts
fun.
prompting something, I know exactly where they're going, and I'm already there. Now, there's good and bad in that. The bad is I don't get
Mm,
the help that I actually need. The good is
mm,
it's a little bit entertaining. But when I'm sitting there with my husband, for example, he can get
mm,
frustrated in that situation because you're just better at this thing than I am, and we're supposed to be
mm,
getting something out of this together, and it's almost like, like you're cheating on the
mm.
test.
So does that mean you need to step back a little bit and let him speak more or, don't take the stage, let him
Probably.
Mhm.
That was very subtle, Paula. Well done. Shut up,
It's just a
Dad. That's what you're
guess.
saying.
Just slow down a
Yeah.
little bit.
I'm
Mm,
gonna put a link. I'm gonna look on your website for those blog posts, and I'm gonna put a link
mhm.
in the show notes to those blog posts for the folks that are wanting to explore this topic a little bit more.
Okay, yeah, that'd be good. The
All right.
relationship one, you mean
Yeah.
about marriages?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be good. But again, it's a lot of it is depends. The answers to a lot of questions when it comes to giftedness is, well, it depends.
Mm.
Or it depends is one answer to a lot of things. It's complicated is the other answer.
I feel that in my bones. All right.
Mhm.
You wrote in your book, you said, "I have worked with many rainforest minds seeking some sort of religious or spiritual direction. Instead, they find frustration. Finding one
Mhm.
religion or spiritual path that meets your needs may be difficult. While you may yearn for spiritual community, it may be hard to find." Yeah.
Have you yearned for spiritual community?
Yeah. I started out, and when I was growing up, I was in a fundamentalist Christian house,
Oof.
pretty rough. So I have a little bit of trauma. I have a lot of trauma around religion
Mm.
and God and spirituality, but I definitely started exploring that. And I have found, for myself, it goes back to the buffet idea. Like,
Mm.
this is going to work a little bit for me today, and then tomorrow something else may work a little bit for me. So I describe myself as an atheist, but I definitely have a
Oh.
spiritual part to myself
Hmm.
that is very
Mhm.
curious and willing to
Mhm.
explore.
I think the people that I see talk about, like, these religions just being too rigid or dogmatic. Dogmatic maybe
Dogmatic.
is
Yeah.
where, yeah. So, they're looking for, yeah, exploring, and I don't know, some people have found Buddhism to be
Yep.
helpful.
Yep.
Some people have found a spirituality in nature, could be the ocean or the woods but just they feel like that thing that's bigger than them. Really important to find something bigger, larger, loving universe or whatever that might look like, and experiment. I have found a certain number of people who actually are what we would call they might be healers or they might be energy workers or they might have psychic abilities and
Okay.
okay, intuition, I guess, is the easier word to use,
Yeah,
that,
say more about that.
yeah, yeah, just met with a gifted woman who has got a couple kids, and she talked about both of her boys really, like, that premonitions. They have premonitions. They know what's gonna happen. They're highly sensitive and they can, um, almost like know what I'm gonna say before I say it.
Mm,
Again, intellectually gifted person has this, but the reinforced minded person seems to have this intuition. And
mm.
sometimes it goes over into what we would call psychic abilities or ESP or premonition or spirituality where they feel like they have a spiritual support and this is what I have. I have like a spiritual support network, that's it feels like what do you call them, guardian angels or
Yeah,
something like that,
yeah.
right? And
Like, you
I
feel a
and I
presence, like, you feel a presence outside of your
yeah.
own self? Yeah.
Right, and I feel like, "Whoa, guided," and what
Mm,
I do I'm a big journal writer, that's another
yeah.
tool that
Yeah,
I
me too.
recommend,
Yep.
right? Journal writing, yay. So so I will when I'm in that, like, existential depression place
Mm.
or just lonely, I might just ask a question in my journal, "I need help me," "What am I doing?" or "What can I do?" or I'll just free write without thinking. Try not to think, just write whatever comes. And I will very consistently get this loving message. I mean, I don't get instructions or I don't get, you should go to the, I don't know, the
Go
market
buy
and
this lottery ticket at this
right.
place. Yeah. You
Yes.
don't get that.
I do not get
Yeah,
that.
me
I
either.
don't have
Okay.
that psychic ability, but I feel like I've got this group of guardian angels who I feel like, in fact, I've been guided all along, maybe. I there was no reason for me to move to Oregon. I was in Pennsylvania. No logical reason. I had never been here. I didn't know anyone. I didn't have a job. It was like, I was 29 and I thought, I need to move somewhere. Where should I go? Oh, I think I should go to Oregon because they have a bottle bill. So it was like, totally weird. And now that I look back on that, I think that was disguided. That was like, I'm supposed to, this is home. This feels like home. This is where I'm supposed to be. So I think that rainforest minded people have access to something like that.
I
That
agree. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
mhm,
yeah, definitely, which is odd coming from someone who describes himself as an atheist. But
yeah,
even looking back all of my life, I can definitely see a guiding force that I cannot explain that has led me to where I am. And I know that we're meaning-making machines, and so that if you
mhm,
experience something in the now, you're able to connect the dots with how you got to that place. But sometimes I think it's beyond that, and I can't explain that, and I don't know
mhm,
that I've talked to other folks that say, you don't need to know everything, so just accept it and
yeah,
move on. Why drive yourself
mm.
crazy trying to figure it out?
Oh, yeah. Well, no, you can try to figure it out.
Okay.
You yeah, no, let yourself do that.
Alright.
That's what gifted people do. So I wouldn't say atheist. You might maybe agnostic would be a better
Maybe.
word.
I think that I have so much trauma around
Around
religion
yeah.
that I just outright reject. When you say God,
Mm,
I just immediately
yeah.
go to an institution that I abhor, and I just want
Mhm,
nothing to
right.
do with that.
Yeah.
And yet I do
Mhm,
feel an enormous amount of spirituality.
mhm,
Alright, let me read something else from your book. Your natural ability may mean that you expect everything you learn to come quickly and easily. When it does not, you conclude that you are not so smart after all. You do not realize that some things are supposed to be difficult. Not everything you try will be or should be easy to learn. Or you may decide not to risk trying anything you are not sure you will do well, so as not to expose your deficiencies. The complexity of these issues makes it hard to sort yourself out, much less explain yourself to others. So let's talk about sorting
mhm,
yourself out, having to explain yourself to others. And this really comes up in our work life, where
mm,
sometimes we find ourselves in a career where, for those
mm,
folks that have real jobs where they're smarter than their boss or they're 5 steps ahead of their colleagues and they're
mm,
not really sure how do you navigate the political terrain of that sort of a culture. What do you hear from your clients in terms of finding satisfaction with their careers? What careers do you typically see them seek out and find
mhm.
meaning in?
So lots of frustration if they have a job where they have a supervisor and colleagues, which are most jobs, right?
Yeah.
So I hear a lot of frustration because there's very common smarter than the supervisor. Very often they have an assignment, they have an 8-hour, work day, but they finish it in half the time, and now what do I do?
Yeah.
If they're in a place where there's consensus, which is a great, model, but, they have to wait till everybody gets on board and
Mhm.
they knew the answer in the beginning and nobody listens to them. And so, but they're sitting there like, oh, when are these people going to catch up? Or that I have somebody said, I said the thing. And then the other guy said it. They said, oh, that's such a great idea. But I had that idea.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Ugh, it's really hard.
Yeah.
It's just hard in many settings. So that's why I think you asked me that question. So do you have entrepreneurial abilities? Could
Mm.
you start your own business?
Do you see a lot of
And then
rainforest minds doing that, going that path?
or they want to, or they try to, or it's hard. You have to have that entrepreneurial thing too. And it
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily, you don't necessarily have that as a gifted person. So if you don't, then it's like, how do you make things work within a job that's not as stimulating or as satisfying as it could be?
Yeah.
So that's tricky. So I guess one idea is, understanding why you're frustrated, at least not beating yourself up for the frustration you feel at work in a
Mhm.
job where, your intellect is not stimulated, where you have to go through the motions, where you have to jump through the hoops. If you have entrepreneurial ability, so I'll give you an example. I have a client years ago. She opened a children's bookstore and she loved kids, she loved book, but she ran this business, so she had to learn budgets, and she remodeled the building that she put the bookstore in. So she tapped into so many different. Not everybody has all these abilities, but
Yeah.
she loved remodeling. She knew how to build stuff, design the building, and set the building up for this bookstore, made it beautiful because she had this aesthetic thing that that gifted people can sometimes have. So it was great because there was all this variety. So that's the other thing. If you can at least have some variety in what you do, so you're not doing the same thing day after day, that can be helpful. That can be something. But it's tricky. The colleague thing is hard. If you're in a with a group of people who don't care, you're the one you care about, things going well and they're just going through the motions. The workplace question is hard. And then again, if you have this multi-potentiality and you like the job for the first year and then you become really good at it, then you want to do something else. Then, like your partner might not be happy with you
Right.
if you're, changing jobs every few years,
Right.
but you are frustrated in a
Mhm.
job and you wanna learn something else,
Do
but
you
that's
see
hard.
rainforest minds switching jobs or switching careers often?
Yeah, yeah.
Do they always know what they're gonna go to next when they make the leap, or do they just know that what they're in right now is done?
What I suggest is that, you can't make the leap if you don't have another source of income,
Yeah.
right? I don't say, "Just take the leap, just do it, and you'll be fine because the universe will provide."
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
you need financial security. So
Hmm.
don't leap until you have something, unless you got a what do they call that? A trust fund or a
Yeah,
partner who's
yeah,
got money,
yeah.
right? So
Okay,
that's yeah.
okay. I can imagine the person listening to this saying, "Okay, I don't like what I'm doing. Don't know what's next, but I'm so
Mhm,
miserable right now." How do
mhm.
you help them manage that in between time?
But there are a lot of books now out,
Mm.
right, about finding what you love. The Barbara Sher, "I would do anything if I only knew what it was." That book.
Mhm.
She wrote a book called Refuse to Choose, which is really she doesn't say gifted, but it's really for people who have lots of interests and they wanna do many different things, and that book is a guidebook for that.
Okay. I want to read something else from your book here. You said, "Get out of the box, let go of normal, and stop trying to climb into the box." I thought that was profound advice.
Mm,
So what do you say for the person that comes and says, "Paula, I'm gifted. How do I get through this life?"
How do I get through this life? Well, I think I would say I need more information.
Okay. Well, we've been talking for an
Yeah.
hour, and I'm like,
Oh, you're asking me that
"Well, yeah,
question.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
I've told you,
I
and it's just
yeah.
revealed a little bit.
Mm.
It's hard, and you've talked
Yes.
about I know in I think it was the
Uh,
last chapter of your book, you talked about deforestation and how we
mhm,
don't value our gifted people. We're also living in a
mhm,
time where the anti-intellectuals are in charge and they're wanting to take books out of libraries that they don't like and defund any sort of knowledge. And I think
mhm.
that that's really scary and painful for a lot of people, not just gifted people, but especially gifted people who have the extra
Yeah.
sensitivity and sense of justice around it. How do
Mhm.
we, and so I guess, to rephrase my
Yeah.
question a little bit, not just how do we get through this slide, but how do we get through this time when so many of us are scared, we are pissed off, we are exhausted? How do
I
we
know.
navigate
I
this? What
know.
advice are you giving your clients to help them get through
Yeah.
this period and
I
through
know.
life?
I know. It is really it's that there aren't words, right, for what's
Yeah.
happening right now.
Yeah.
There really aren't words. So on the one hand, find community, but then for the gifted people, it's like, where?
I'm working on
Because
that
it's n
too.
y
I'm working on that
yeah,
too. Yeah.
right. You
Yeah.
can't just go anywhere. So, step 1, understand this thing that we're calling gifted, that Rainforest Mind. Understand that's who you are, really get clear about it, do all the reading, and because you wanna get if there's any part of you that is still rejecting yourself because I'm too much, I'm a lot. When you go there, I'm a lot, I'm too much, that too much, not enough,
Mhm.
all those things, that self-criticism. A big thing is to really get clear about how actually gorgeous you are, how wonderful all these characteristics are, and that you struggle, and that you but you see it. It's not wrong with me. I have this rainforest mind. Okay, I need to first of all, come to more self-acceptance, and maybe, if you have trauma,
Mhm.
that you find the therapy that you need to heal, like we could say, that wounded child in you, to love him, to see how perfect he is, and how sensitive and sweet and God, what he went through. And like level one or one layer of how do you get through this time actually is doing that inner work, doing that healing of yourself and not seeing it as selfish, not seeing it as, oh, you should be out marching. Why aren't you out marching when, and you're like doing the inner work? And it's good we need to be active. We need to talk to our Congress people. We need to speak out politically. So what I'm saying is one level of it is finding that self-acceptance, finding that peace within yourself, healing the trauma, because I think we tend to diminish or minimize the effect of what happened when we were children. People say it happened in the past. Get over it. Why are you
Right.
still thinking about the past?
Yeah.
Right?
It's
Like,
like if I could, don't you think I would have?
right.
Like, come on.
That's right, right.
Yeah.
It's deep work, and it takes a lot of because you have to even find the right therapist, which is
Mhm.
when you're gifted.
Mhm.
So that's one piece of it. Imagine if everybody, like, just healed their family trauma, if they stopped abusing their children, if they stopped passing on to the next generation the trauma that they received from
Mhm.
their parents, what a different world
Yeah.
it would be, right?
So you don't feel like we have a special obligation as gifted people to be the resistance fighters on the front lines. You think that the change begins within, and if you can focus on that, then you are in fact doing what you can do. That is your form of resistance. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's part 1,
Okay.
okay? And then there is another part.
Let's hear it.
So, and yeah, and it's not necessarily frontline protesting, although again, it's like I'm not saying don't write to your congressman. And so I'm not saying don't do that. But the second part for gifted people, I think, is figuring out what are you here to do? It's not live up to your great potential, which it sort of is. It's more, right? It's like, because that's like pressure. "Oh, no, I'm gifted. I have to
Yep,
become a Nobel Prize winner."
yep,
No, it's more what feeds your soul? What is your heart yearning to do that also is going to have an impact?
yep,
That you can have an impact in some way, but not just any old thing. It's got to be congruent to who you are and what brings you joy. I'll use myself as an example. I love what I do. I mean, I I mean, ho what is better than talking to you? I mean, my god. It's like, it's I
You're
love
so
you.
sweet. You're so
It's
sweet.
really Chad, it's really true. I get to talk to smart people every day,
Mhm,
people who are highly sensitive and caring, and so I do that, and then I love the blog, I love to write, and I love
mhm.
to get
You do such a good
feedback
job
from
with that.
people,
Yeah,
and it's so fun. I
yeah,
just like it fills me up. Other people might, love water skiing or something, I'm blogging, thank you very much. I'm not
yeah,
gonna go water skiing to
yeah,
so it's like, that's what I think we need to do. Find what excites you, and it's not gonna be maybe one thing, or it might be this thing now, and then in a few years, it might be something else,
yeah,
because right? It doesn't have to
yeah.
be one thing now forever.
Don't give yourself a life sentence. Yeah.
Right, right, right. Make it
You're
yeah.
you're reminding me of a quote. I'm gonna butcher his name. Desjardins, I can never
De
pronounce Desjardins.
Teilhard de Chardin.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he says, we are not human beings who have spiritual experiences. We are spiritual beings who are having a human experience. And what I hear
Mhm,
you saying is keeping the main thing. And the main thing is you are here having a human experience. So be human. Whatever that
mhm,
means to you, whatever that's you can get out of this experience, go do that thing. Go do that thing. Go be a human
mhm.
being.
Yeah, yeah. What you know that song, Billie Eilish, "What Was I Made For?"
Yes, yes, the Barbie
Or
song. I love that. Yeah.
yeah, I did a talk, and I ended with that song, and everybody's crying because I said, "What are you here for? What are you here to do?" Yeah.
I didn't get to ask you this in the beginning, and I should have. So forgive me for going a little bit out of sequence here at the end of our conversation.
It's okay.
What causes giftedness?
Huh. What
Just a light question to end on. What
I
what what
think
causes it? Why does this happen?
I think what I've read is that people say it's genetic.
I've read that. So was it Mary Elaine Jacobson that said it was some sort of evolutionary biological mutation almost that happens?
I don't know. I would trust what she said. I think she recommending her book
Her
is
book
good.
is
Her book,
great. I think
yeah,
a lot
The
of I
Gifted
think
Adult.
several people have come out since then and said that is not the case. Um,
Oh,
but
I
I really
I
liked the idea. I thought it explained a lot.
what I know or what I've experienced is you see it in the babies. You're born with these traits. It's
Yeah.
how you're wired, and you're born with that wiring. Now, it can be affected, called
Nature
the
versus nurture,
nature
the
nurture.
the the
Yeah,
nurtured
yeah.
part of it. Yeah.
But yeah, I have found my clients. I have the counseling clients who have huge trauma. They are still gifted. It has not affected their giftedness.
Yeah.
They aren't even personality disordered from
Mhm.
this awful trauma, so there's something in them. This is a whole other thing where there's something that kept them from breaking.
Paula Prober, we are going to have another conversation because I think you just opened a can of worms on your final statement there. Her name is Paula Prober, and she wrote Your Rainforest Mind. She is a psychotherapist, a consultant, a wonderful artist, my new friend. You can find her and learn more about her at rainforestmind.com. All of her links are in the show notes. You are going to love her blog. Get on her newsletter, it's wonderful. Paula also just released an audio version of Journey into Your Rainforest Mind. You can also find a link to that in the show notes. You are amazing.
Mm,
You are amazing. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you. This was wonderful.